Hello and welcome to my retro watches. As you can tell from the intro there, the Zodiac watch is now completed. This has been a monumental project and probably one of the longest projects I've had, certainly of a watch that's not of my own. The owner of this has been very patient. He sent it to me over 8 months ago, I think now. Certainly it was at Christmas time when this came, and here we are in August after all the COVID situation. With the final watch completed. Wow. And it's been on a right journey, I can tell you. There's reasons why this video is being so delayed, and that's partly due to problems I've had with the watch, and then a bit further down the line, problems that I then caused. I actually had a major problem with this that I caused by my own hands, and I'll get round to telling you about that. Now, really, you're not going to see too much in the way of building on this watch because it's sitting right here, it's already built, and I didn't film it, and there's a reason I didn't film it, and I will get onto that as well. It's really just going to be me talking a bit, I'm afraid, and we'll do some bench shots and I'll explain everything that's happened along the way, because it's quite an interesting journey, let's face it. So if you remember the first video, certainly if you watched the first video of the disassembly, the moment I took the dial off, I realised that there was a problem with the minute wheel. The minute wheel was rusted, and it was also turned out to be missing some teeth. So that was a part that I knew I needed to find, and I did find one. I found one in Cousins. It cost me £13. I think it was actually from a different calibre of this particular movement, but it was a common part shared between those calibres. So that was a good news. And then in the second video I showed the cleaning procedure that I did on this watch to see how good we could clean those parts up, especially the rusted ones. If you remember, there was a lot of rusted wheels in there, and I was a bit concerned about them, but I've had rusted wheels before, and you know, you either got to replace them or you can see if it's going to run, and I was off the ilk of let's try and see if it's going to run and take it from there. However, upon releasing that video to you guys, very quickly in the comment section, many of you were screaming at me that didn't I realise that the impulse jewel was missing from the balance. That's right, I had missed that completely. In the filming, of course, I'm looking down this lens here and the camera's looking down this one. I put the balance on there and I was purely looking at the hairspring to see if the hairspring was all nice and central on the curves of it, and that it wasn't sticking or bent or there was anything wrong. And I failed to even look at the impulse jewel, and the impulse is a really important part. Without the impulse, really the whole watch is not going to run. So once reading those comments, I actually checked, yes, it was missing. I then actually rebuilt the watch. In a way I thought, well, stuff it, I'll learn how to rebuild and make sure I've still got all the parts, etc. So I did all that, and it did go back together well. The train looked like it was running quite freely, but what to do about the impulse? You know, I was stumped. It's not a job that I can take on. As I say in all my videos, I'm just a hobbyist. I'm like you guys, or most of you. I'm not professional, I've not been trained in any way, and trying to do jewels is way above my pay grade. I have no idea how to do it. I'd love to know how to do it, but that's maybe, you know, in the future for my watchmaking skills perhaps. So what I had to do was reach out to a really good friend of mine, and he's an admin also in my Facebook group, a guy called Mr. Simon Coop. Now again, if you're in the Facebook group, you'll know Simon because he's absolute prolific on the posting. He will reply to just about anybody's questions, and he's just an all-round genuine nice guy and full of help. And Simon is a seasoned professional watchmaker. He's done time served for decades, and he's also done a lot of work on Rolexes, so he does know his stuff, and yet he relishes giving out all of his experience to people like me, and tries to teach us the ways of watchmaking. An unbelievable guy, and I can't blow enough smoke up his behind. I really can't, because I do genuinely like the guy a lot. And anyway, so I reached out to Simon and said, look, I've got this problem, can you help me please? And of course Simon obliged. He says, just send the movement up with the balance, I need the movements, obviously, because I need to make sure that once I've put the jewel in, it's going to run properly. So send it up and let me see what I can do. So, of course, I packed it all up, sent it off in the post, and waited for Simon to get round to it, because Simon has a lot on, and it does take him a few months to get round to the jobs. So anyway, Simon fitted the jewel, and then we have this conversation of, well, you know, I fitted the jewel, I found some other problems that need addressing, so let's get on that. So Simon had to replace various parts within the watch to get it up to his standard, and he sent me a little note which I'm going to read out here now to tell you all about the problems that he found and the problems that he then solved. So it's put on here that on the examination of the watch, it was found that the centre wheel pinion was rusted along with the intermediate wheel pivot and the pivot on the centre second wheel. Well, this is kind of what we do know. If you remember, all those sort of wheels were all jammed up together with rust, and it's no surprise that from a professional eye there's a lot of rust, so that's a problem. The centre wheel was replaced with the new one together with the intermediate wheel, so he was able to find some parts. I remember the two of us actually searching the internet for certain parts for this, and he's a lot more resourceful than I, and he can find stuff that I can't, which is great. However, we could not find the centre second wheel. There was no replacement at all, and that was the main one with all the rust. And of course I'll be putting photos up of these as we're going along, so you should be able to see some of the parts. So basically he put it up on his lathe on a J-cot tool, and he spun the pivot and he polished it as good as he could get it. So that was as good a fix as we could achieve. And then he found that the winding was quite noisy. Now, I'd identified this problem right at the beginning, and I'll have a little clip of it now as well. That certainly when I was turning the screw on the barrel, you could hear it clicking or skipping. It was quite an odd noise. It wasn't right at all. And obviously Simon also identified this. And what he found was that the barrel is, well, basically not what he found, because he knew the barrel is has a gear on the bottom of it, and that actually mates with another wheel with the opposing gear, and basically they were all worn out. And again, I've got the parts, I've got all the parts here, this little box, and he identified that. Again, I'll put some photographs of it now as well so that you can see, because all the little steps on the gears, or many of them, was worn out, and that's just through 50 years of people winding this watch by hand or by the rotor from the automatic works. So typically with Simon, he was able to replace the barrel, the gear underneath, the arbor, and he then also, for good measure, put a brand new mainspring in. What a guy. So that was all the main issues that he had found with the mechanics of it. But then he found yet another problem, and it was another problem caused by me. The setting lever, which is obviously in the keyless works, was found to be upside down, which had caused a fracture which would have resulted in a breakage at some point in the near future. So this was replaced with a new one. Now, I had to confess, because I always tell the truth. Now, I messed around with that setting lever for ages when I was trying to rebuild the watch, and I just couldn't figure out how it went on properly. And I was sort of looking at the old videos and sort of, you know, thinking, well, that's how it goes. But clearly, I put it on the wrong way, and through tightening the screw, clearly had fractured it as well. So that is certainly another mark against my name for my mistakes, but hey, we all do it, don't we? So once Simon had fitted the jewel, he then basically serviced the entire movement. So stripped it all down, cleaned it, give it a proper professional service. I didn't ask for this, but I guess it's Simon's pride. You know, he doesn't want to send anything out that's a bit duff. So, and this is the reason now, actually, why I've not filmed the rebuild of the watch, because when a professional's done it, he's actually said to me that, oh, you can take it apart and film it for your video, it's not a problem at all. But what if a professional's done it? Why on earth would I then want to tamper with a professional's work to try and make a video to satisfy my audience? You know, it's the owner's watch, and if a pro's done it, it's going to be a little bit better than what I can achieve. Well, that's my theory in a way. I will end actually about Simon, that he said he made certain that the assistance was given to myself in this project to keep the costs down, and he didn't charge me, honestly, he didn't charge me for the labour, and just purely for the parts. Now, what a generous guy. He even knows that the watch is not mine, but he's still prepared to help me out. So again, a big thumbs up. I'm sorry for talking about Simon for so long, but you know, he's a great asset to the group, and certainly if any of you are out there who are not in Facebook land, perhaps you should come in, because people like him are really invaluable, certainly when you're trying to learn watchmaking. To have the ear of a professional who will genuinely give you free advice is second to none. It really is. So when Simon had finished all of his work and he was happy to release the watch back to me, he put it in the post, of course, and sent it down. And once I received it, all I'd have to do really was put the automatic works back on, and the hands and the dial, and recase the watch, and we could then call it a day. So first of all, what I did, because if you kind of again remember on some of the first video, the hands are sort of, they were loomed, but the loom was absolutely hanging off. It didn't look good at all, and I decided to take the rest of the loom off as a precaution more than anything else. I did ask the owner, Nick, if he wanted it re-loomed. The problem I've got is I can only re-loom with what I've got. I can't really generate the colours from the original. And then equally, if you do the hands all new, it's going to look a bit odd to the rest of the watch. And of course, it was Nick's decision. So we decided really just to take the loom off and leave them like hands that are skeletonized. And my reason for that is that the loom, again, through time will fall off, fall into bits, and that will actually slowly but surely work its way under the dial back into the movement, possibly jamming it before it should do for its next service. So that's what I did. And anyway, long story short is I rebuilt the watch, put the hands on, and put the back on. And then when I was winding the watch, after a few winds, the crown actually came off in my hands, and I thought, great. So I need to refit the crown and actually put a little bit of thread locker onto the stem. So I prized the back off again and glued the stem, let the stem dry for a couple of days, put the stem back in, and then went to put the case back on. Now the case back on this is very tight. It's a press fit. You've got to use the watch press, and the long story short is I was using the bottom die. So this is the bottom die, as you can see here. I've actually done a slightly different video for this that you'll see, but the bottom die, I put the watch in there, I pushed down, and then lo and behold, the crown came rolling round to the front of the watch, and literally my heart sank at that point. I took the watch then out of the press and realised that I'd literally snapped the crown clean off the movement. I couldn't make sense of how that had happened, other than I'd done something wrong, and maybe that obviously the press had squashed it off somehow. But I was absolutely mortified, and to be fair, I still am now. Genuinely, nothing hurts more than working on somebody else's watch and then you break it through your own hands, or your own even stupidity in this case. I didn't know what to do at this stage. I was pretty gutted, but I rallied myself around and thought, well, okay, let's do the alum trick. We can get the thread out of the stem, the crown, and we can utilise it, because the crown is signed. It's got a nice Zodiac sign on there, and a new one was, I think I found one for about £40 or something. It was very expensive. So I did the alum trick and found out the alum would not dissolve the stem, because clearly the stem must have been made from stainless steel. So I was gutted. I also sheared off completely the pendant tube, so everything had gone. So I put the watch away and literally left it for 2 months. I couldn't face looking at it, knowing what I'd done, and I was in a bit of despair of like, what do I do to fix this now? Because really I need a professional help again to put the crown in a lathe and spin it in a lathe and drill out the old stem and then re-tap it so we can buy a new stem and get it working again. And I didn't want to bother Simon. I did tell Simon this is what I did, because he was I had to bend his ear, I had to bend somebody's ear about what I'd done. And he said, don't worry, send it up to me and I'll put it right. And of course I said, I can't. I need to try and address this myself. So I did. 2 months down the line, I was sitting here one night and I thought, right, let's have a go. And I got the crown out and had a bit of a forward-thinking idea, or maybe a bit of a mad idea, I don't know. But I ended up putting the crown in my cordless drill in the chuck. So I'd set it up quite well so that it would spin straight in the chuck. And then I got a pin vise with a 0.5mm drill on it, and basically held the pin vise whilst turning the drill very, very slowly. And slowly but surely it did start to bite, and probably within an hour, maybe a bit more, I had to keep coming back to it, I'd successfully managed to drill out the old stem. There were still some remnants of steel in there, and again Simon gave me a great tip. He says use a left-handed screw, and if you screw that into the crown, when you unscrew it will actually, when you screw it in, because it's the opposite thread, it'll actually push out some of the swarf that's still in the old in the threads of the crown, if that makes sense. And that actually worked to a degree, but then also I had bought a new stem at this point as well, and I managed to sort of re-thread it to the point that it would work. And at that point, honestly, the relief was overwhelming. I'd managed to successfully do this on a real home remedy that I never expected I would be able to do. It was quite something. I'm running out of words, really. So then it was also to do the tube, the pendant tube. I'd never done a pendant tube before. I'd never broke one, so I'd never needed to replace one. And the old one wouldn't come out very easily, so I had to use a broach to just cut through it a little bit. And once I broached the hole, I bought a selection of pendant tubes, fished them out all over my desk, and found one that would suit. Actually used a little bit of thread locker, so I still used my Loctite 243 on that as well for good measure, and pushed it in, and managed to then fit the crown, of course, and reassemble everything, and then put the case back on correctly. Okay, this is going to be the moment of truth for me after all the disasters and problems I've had with this Zodiac. Just to sort of explain a little bit more about how I made my silly error of breaking the crown, the stem and the crown and the pendant tube. It was basically the wrong selection of the bottom die. So here we've got the little cheap press that I use, and I've got a bottom die and of course the top die. And the top die I measured for this case back, but the bottom die I just used this one without thinking, because it was still loaded in there, and I put the watch in it and like that, and I thought nothing of it. But what, as you can kind of see, is that it's loose, but also it's resting. The crown rests on that, so the moment you push force into it, it's going to bend. And of course that takes quite a lot of force. And it was also blindsided to me, so the crown was around the back. I was being pretty blasé. I'd already had the crown off, sorry, the back off, or I'd fitted it, and then I had to take it back off because I realised I hadn't tightened the stem in properly. So I'd take the case back off again and just use the same setup. So realistically, the first time I did it, I was just blooming lucky. So if I just unscrew this die, hopefully we don't have the same problem twice. So as you can see there, the crown is cleared. Really painful mistake for me. This really dented my confidence a lot actually. This watch, although it didn't cost a lot for the owner, it's sort of a bit of a grail one for him, and myself and Simon have put so much effort into trying to get it to run that to break it the way I did, well, I'm still sad to talk about it now. It really did knock me for six. Really disappointed that I'd do something like that. But you live and you learn, and certainly that mistake is not going to happen again. So here we go. Thing about this case back as well, I don't think it's on camera necessarily. Just realised what I can't see. There's a little gap at the bottom there, and that's to put the case knife under it if should you wish to take it off again. So you need to make sure, or I need to make sure, that I'm lining that up again so that it's between, you can't see again, so you can between the lugs like so. So I want to make sure that's sort of sitting fairly parallel and flat. I'll put it in the press this time, keeping an eye on the crown. There was a definite click. I can take it out. Case back is on successfully, and there's been no damage this time to the crown. So I am so relieved at this point. I really am. I think you might be able to hear it in my voice, to be honest with you. It's such relief to know that the case back is on. I don't have to take it back off again, and the watch will be saved. So thanks very much. I'm now going to go and celebrate ever so slightly. Right then, finally you get to see the watch running close up. So here it is, case back nice and secure, crown in place, all the problems now rectified. What a relief, and what a nice watch. I have to say, as a vintage watch, I mean, I do like my vintage watches, but I would gladly have one of these. This is really, really nice. Now I have repolished the crystal. The crystal is acrylic, and I did a little interesting way to do it because it was really badly scratched actually, and I'll show you some pictures now. But basically, I coloured it in with a black marker pen, and then I basically used some wet and dry, really fine wet and dry, like 1000 grit, and then went on to some diamond paste and then some polywatch to get it into the condition that it's in now, and that came up quite nicely. The skeletonized hands you can see there properly now, real time, and no doubt they would look better with loom, and certainly with the loom of the right sort of aged and colour, but as we can see, the loom has gone at the 12, and there'd be no way of rectifying that with the numbers in them. So happy to leave it like this. What myself and Nick, the owner, sort of agonised over was whether to retouch the bezel markings. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on this in the comments below. Originally we were going to do it because I kind of thought it might highlight it all again, make it look quite nice. And then it was that, well, you know, are we detracting value or adding value? To be fair, I don't think the value really matters to the owner because, you know, he's a big watch collector and this isn't going anywhere, but it's whether it would detract from it or not, really. Obviously, there's a lot of wear on this bezel ring. So I don't know. I would like to see what it looks like, but then if I didn't like it, it's too late, isn't it? So it'd be interesting to know what you guys think, whether to just leave that alone. And the bezel now does work. It's still a little bit stiff, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was. It doesn't click, and I don't think it should click, to be honest. And of course, here's the case back, you can see all nicely on, and it has the 20 atmosphere mark. So very early waterproof watch, although I wouldn't chuck this in water right now. So what's left to do? Nothing really, other than put it on the time grapher and show you it running on there. Okay, moment of truth. The lift angle is set at 52 degrees because that's what it should be on this particular watch. And we'll put it in there. And here we go. There Now then, what can we see there? Let me just mute that speaker. We can see a little bit of a wobble basically. So I've known about this because when it came back from Simon originally, I put it on the timographer and it was doing this, and it's a difficult one. The watch is so very old. We do think there's obviously still one of the parts in there that is slightly out, one of the ones that we've not changed. However, we've deemed it acceptable. As you can see, Simon's got this running really well, no beat error, fairly minimal rate differential there, certainly on dial up. So we're considering this happy, and I'm sure Nick is. It's not the perfect straight line, but then if this watch is 60 years old or so, you know, it is allowed a little bit of wobble. Let's just normally I wouldn't have the strap on to do these. So in dial down again, as expected from a professional's work, it's still absolutely spot on, no difference at all. So really happy with that. And again, I wind this thing, it seems to wind for a long time, and it holds really good reserve as well, but then that would be because Simon's put a brand new mainspring in there. So happy days. So there we go, really impressed all round. Finally this watch is finished after so long, and it wouldn't be complete without a wrist shot. So there we go, you can see it there. In actual fact, let's just take the size as well, just in case anyone's interested, because I've got no idea what the size of this watch is. So we just measure it, including the crown. It's 38 thereabouts. So it's quite a small watch, but then you'd expect that for the period. If I took the strap off, I'd be able to show you the really weird size, but I've got a photo of it actually, I'll put up now. It's 17.5 millimeters. So that's the most weirdest lug size I've ever seen. It doesn't even turn into a fractional size. So I don't know where that's come from at all. Okay guys, let's bring this video to a close. I do hope you enjoyed the whole series of the Zodiac Sea Wolf. It's been an interesting and very long journey, and I'm sorry that I didn't bring you the build video that maybe you were hoping for, and instead you've had to watch me, just my face, talking. So I do apologise for that, but the watch needed to be fixed, and these were the things we had to do to fix it. So I'm hoping the owner, Nick Dodd, who's out there somewhere watching, is going to enjoy this one just as much as I have, and he'll look after this, and he'll have this whole video record to look back on. So there we go. So like always guys, thanks very much for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please leave plenty of comments below. I do read every single one, and I try to reply to as many as I can. And of course, if you do like this channel, consider subscribing. If you click the subscribe button, please click the bell button next to it, and then that way you get alerted to any new videos that I put up on YouTube. So thanks very much for all of that. Don't forget to check out the Facebook group, my retro, no, it's not my retro watches, because that's my channel. The Facebook group is called Retro and Vintage Watches and Restorations. So guys, I've got plenty more video ideas coming, so hopefully I'll be filming those very soon. So bye for now.